The first time my sister said it out loud, I laughed because my brain refused to accept the words. "The greatest gift for my wedding," she said calmly, "is if you disappear from our family." The room went silent, but inside me, something shattered so loudly I was sure everyone could hear it. I smiled anyway. I always smiled. That was my role. I'm the older sister, the reliable one, the one who fixes things quietly and never asks for credit. My sister's name is Emily. Mine is Rachel. Growing up in a small suburban town outside Chicago, everyone knew us as the perfect sisters. Emily was sunshine, popular, beautiful, effortlessly loved. I was the shadow behind her, the one who carried her backpack, did her homework when she cried, lied to our parents when she messed up. And I did it all willingly, because family meant sacrifice. Or so I believed. Emily's wedding was supposed to be the happiest moment of her life. And apparently the moment she decided I no longer fit into it. It started 6 months before the wedding. I was in my kitchen after work when my phone buzzed. Emily's name flashed on the screen. I smiled, wiped my hands on a towel, and answered. "Rach, guess what?" Her voice was high-pitched, excited. "You finally picked a dress?" I teased. She laughed. "No." "Better." Mom and Dad agreed. "I can have the big ballroom downtown. The one with the glass ceiling." "That's amazing," I said honestly. "I'm happy for you." "Good," she replied. "Because I'll need you to help pay the remaining deposit." There it was. Casual. Effortless. Expected. "How much?" I asked. "Only $25,000, she said quickly, like she was saying $25. I closed my eyes. I had savings, yes, but that money was for the down payment on my own place. I was 34, single, tired of renting, tired of waiting for my life to begin. "I'll think about it," I said carefully. She went quiet for a second, then sighed. "You always do this. You know this wedding means everything to me." "I know," I replied. You're my sister," she cut in. "That should be enough." The call ended shortly after. I stood there, staring at the dark screen, the familiar guilt creeping in like a cold draft. By the next morning, I'd transferred the money. That was the pattern. Emily asked. I gave. Always. 3 months later, I noticed the changes. Emily stopped sharing details with me. Bridal appointments I wasn't invited to. Family group chats where my messages went unanswered. When I asked Mom about it, she waved it off. "Emily's just stressed," Mom said. "Don't make everything about you." Dad barely looked up from his newspaper. "Try to keep the peace, Rachel. This is her big moment." Keep the peace. Another phrase that always meant, be quiet and accept it. I did. Until the day of the seating chart. We were gathered in Emily's apartment, bridesmaids, parents, planners. Papers spread across the dining table. I stood beside Emily, pointing out names. "Where am I sitting?" I asked lightly. She didn't look up. "Oh. You'll be at table 12. 12. I blinked. "Isn't that with the vendors?" She shrugged. "You'll barely be there anyway." The room went awkwardly still. One of the bridesmaids avoided my eyes. Mom cleared her throat. "I'm your sister," I said quietly. "Why wouldn't I be at the family table?" Emily finally looked at me. Her eyes were cold, calculating, different. "Because you don't fit the image," she said. The words slapped me harder than if she'd raised her hand. "The image." I repeated. "Yes," she said, annoyed now. "This wedding is elegant. Perfect. And honestly, Rachel, you remind people of things I'm trying to move past." I felt heat rise in my chest. What does that even mean? She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You're divorced. You don't have kids. You work all the time. You don't exactly scream, happy ending." I stared at her, unable to speak. She straightened, smoothing her dress. "I don't want that energy around me on my wedding day." Something inside me cracked, but years of conditioning kicked in. I swallowed it. "I understand," I lied. That night, I cried in my car for nearly an hour. The breaking point came at the family dinner. 2 weeks before the wedding, Emily insisted on a final family meeting at our parents' house. I arrived early, carrying dessert like always. We sat around the dining table, Mom, Dad, Emily, her fiancé Mark, and me. Emily cleared her throat dramatically. I need to say something, and I want everyone to listen without interrupting. My stomach dropped. She turned to me. Rachel, she said slowly, I've thought about this a lot. I waited. The greatest gift you could give me for my wedding, she continued, is if you disappear from our family. Silence. Mom gasped softly. Dad stiffened. Mark stared at his plate. I felt like I'd been pushed underwater. I don't mean forever, Emily added quickly. Just don't come to the wedding. Don't be around for a while. Let me have this moment without history. I laughed. A sharp, broken sound. You want me to disappear? She nodded. Yes. For how long? I asked. She hesitated. Until things feel lighter. Dad finally spoke. Emily, that's harsh. She rolled her eyes. You always defend her. This is my day. Mom looked at me, pleading. Rachel, maybe you can understand her stress. There it was. The familiar push. Be the bigger person. I looked around the table, at the people I had sacrificed for my entire life. And something inside me changed. I see, I said calmly. Emily relaxed, assuming she'd won. I'll give you exactly what you want, I continued. She smiled. Thank you. I knew you'd understand. I stood up, placed the untouched dessert on the table, and picked at my coat. But just so we're clear, I said, meeting her eyes, when I disappear, I'm not coming back the same way. She scoffed. Don't be dramatic. I smiled, soft, steady, unfamiliar even to myself. Oh, Emily, I said. I'm done being dramatic. I'm finally being honest. I walked out of my parents' house without looking back. What none of them knew, what Emily especially didn't know, was that her demand had just freed me. And I was about to make choices that would shake the entire family to its core. I didn't cry when I got home that night. That surprised me. I stood in my apartment, small, quiet, painfully clean, and waited for the breakdown to come. The screaming, the sobbing, the familiar collapse that always followed moments like this. But nothing happened. Instead, I felt clear, like someone had finally turned off a noise I didn't even realize had been screaming in my ears my whole life. Emily wanted me gone. My parents had allowed it. And for the first time, I wasn't scrambling to fix it. I sat on the edge of my bed and replayed the moment again and again. Not her words, but my reaction. The calm. The way I'd walked out without apologizing. That was new and dangerous. The next morning, my phone exploded. Missed calls, texts, voicemails. Mom. Rachel, please call me. Dad, we need to talk this through like adults. Emily, don't make this harder than it needs to be. I read them all. Then I placed my phone face down on the table. For the first time in my life, I didn't respond immediately. I went to work instead. At the office, my boss noticed something different about me. You okay? She asked gently during our morning meeting. I nodded. Better than okay. And I meant it. That afternoon, I met with a real estate agent. I'd been saving for years. Quietly. Responsibly. Every bonus. Every sacrifice. Every night, I chose overtime over vacations or dates. That money Emily had called just $25,000. It was a wound, but not a fatal one. I still had enough. Enough to buy a house. A life. A future that didn't revolve around cleaning up someone else's mess. As I signed the initial paperwork, my phone buzzed again. Emily this time. I answered. What? I said calmly. There was a pause. Then irritation. Mom's crying. I said nothing. Dad says you're being stubborn. Still nothing. You're really not coming to the wedding, are you? She asked. You told me not to, I replied. I'm respecting your wishes. That's not what I meant, she snapped. I meant emotionally. Don't twist this. I smiled. She couldn't see it, but I smiled. I'm not twisting anything, I said. I'm finally listening. You're acting like a victim, she said sharply. This is my moment, and I hope it's perfect, I replied. Without me. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From relief. The days that followed were strange. Peaceful. Painful. Quiet in a way that felt unfamiliar. I stopped checking the family group chat. I muted notifications. I blocked Emily on social media, not out of anger, but self-preservation. I focused on work, on packing, on planning my move. And slowly, memories began surfacing, ones I'd buried for years. Like the time Emily crashed my car and blamed me. Or when she announced her engagement at my divorce dinner. Or when Mom once told me, "You're strong. Emily needs more support." I had been strong. Strong enough to disappear when asked. A week before the wedding, my parents showed up at my door unannounced. I opened it to find Mom clutching her purse like a shield, Dad standing stiffly beside her. "We need to talk," Mom said. I stepped aside. "Okay." They sat on my couch, the same couch Emily had once spilled wine on and laughed about. Mom took a breath. "Emily didn't mean it the way it sounded." I folded my hands. "She said exactly what she meant." "She's under pressure," Dad added. "Weddings do that." "So does a lifetime of being overlooked," I replied quietly. Mom flinched. "That's not fair." I met her eyes. "When is the last time you asked me if I was okay?" Silence. Dad cleared his throat. "You're still our daughter." "I know," I said. "But I'm not her backup anymore." Mom reached for my hand. I pulled it back gently. "She's your sister," Mom whispered. "Blood matters." I stood. So does self-respect. They left without another word. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. The wedding day arrived. I didn't go. Instead, I signed the final papers on my house. A small place on the edge of town. White siding. Big windows. A backyard full of potential. As I held the keys in my hand, my phone buzzed again. A message from Mark. I didn't know how bad it was.
"I'm sorry."
I stared at the screen. Then another message. "She's not handling today well." I didn't reply. Because for the first time, her emotions were no longer my responsibility. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the floor of my new living room. Empty. Echoing.
"Mine."
I raised the glass, not in celebration, but in acknowledgement. Of loss. Of courage. Of endings. That's when my phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered. "Rachel," Emily's voice said, tight, shaky. "You're really not here." "No," I replied. "I looked for you," she said. "Everyone asked where you were." I said nothing. Her voice cracked. "Mom's upset." "I'm sure," I said. There was a long pause. "You promised you'd always be there," she whispered. I closed my eyes. I said. "Until you asked me to disappear." She hung up. I finished my wine in silence. What Emily didn't know, what none of them knew, was that my disappearance wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning. And the next time they saw me, I wouldn't be asking for a seat at their table. I'd be bringing my own. 3 days after the wedding, my parents called again. I watched the phone ring until it stopped. Then I watched it ring again. On the third attempt, I answered. "Rachel," Mom said, exhausted. "We need to see you." "Why?" I asked calmly. There was a pause. "Emily's not okay." I leaned back against the kitchen counter of my new house. Sunlight poured through the windows. The silence felt earned. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. "That's it." Dad snapped in the background. "That's all you have to say?" "Yes," I replied. "Because whatever this is, it's not mine to fix anymore." Mom inhaled sharply. "She feels abandoned." I closed my eyes. So did I. For years. They asked if they could come over. I said no. That was new too. The truth came out slowly, like it always does. Friends stopped calling Emily after the wedding. The attention faded. The spotlight moved on. Mark went back to work, exhausted and distant. The house felt quiet, empty. And suddenly, Emily noticed my absence. Not my love. Not my effort. My usefulness. She showed up at my door a week later, unannounced. I opened it to find her standing there, makeup smudged, eyes red, confidence cracked. "You moved," she said flatly. "Yes," I replied. Without telling anyone. "Yes." She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Her eyes scanned the space, the clean lines, the sunlight, the calm. "This is nice," she muttered. "Did Mom help you?"
No.
Her jaw tightened. "So you really cut us off." I closed the door. "You asked me to disappear." "That wasn't permanent," she snapped. "Neither is damage," I said. "But it still hurts." She turned on me. "You're punishing me." I shook my head. "I'm choosing myself." She laughed bitterly. "You always make everything about you." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. "No," I said. "You always did." That stopped her. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. "You think you're better than me now?" she asked quietly. I smiled, not cruelly, truthfully. "I think I'm finally equal." She broke. Right there in my living room.
Tears.
Anger. Accusations. Regret. Messy and unfiltered. "I needed you," she cried. I was overwhelmed. "I didn't mean to push you away." "You didn't push," I replied softly. "You erased." She sank onto the couch. "I don't know how to do this without you." I sat across from her. "That's something you should have learned a long time ago." She looked up. "Are you saying you won't help me anymore?" I thought about it. About all the times I'd shown up when she didn't deserve it. About the years I'd shrunk so she could shine. "I'm saying," I said carefully, "that help isn't free anymore." Her eyes widened. "What does that mean?" "It means boundaries," I replied. "Respect. Accountability."
She scoffed.
"So now you're punishing me with rules." "No," I said. "I'm protecting myself with them." She stood abruptly. "You've changed." "Yes," I said.
Because you force me to.
She stormed out without another word. I locked the door behind her. My hands shook, but my spine didn't. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from Mark. "Emily told me everything."
I didn't know.
"I'm sorry." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then another message came through. "She's scared you won't come back." I typed slowly. "I already did. Just not the way she remembers." I turned my phone off. Weeks passed. Silence from Emily. Occasional check-ins from my parents, careful now, cautious. Like they were afraid I'd vanish again. I didn't. I built routines. Morning coffee on my porch. Evening walks. Laughter with coworkers who knew nothing about my past. I felt lighter. Stronger. And then one afternoon a letter arrived. Handwritten. From Emily. I don't know how to say this without sounding like myself. It began. "But I was wrong. About everything. And I don't expect forgiveness." I folded the letter slowly. Because for the first time, she wasn't asking. She was owning. And that scared me more than her anger ever had. I didn't know yet whether I would respond. But I knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next wouldn't be on her terms. I didn't open Emily's letter right away. I placed it on the kitchen counter and left it there for 2 days, like a test of my own resolve. Every time I passed it, my chest tightened, not with longing, but with caution. Because apologies from Emily had always come with strings. I wasn't sure yet if this one was different. On the third night, rain tapping softly against the windows, I finally sat down and unfolded the pages completely. Her handwriting was messier than I remembered. "I keep replaying that dinner in my head," she wrote. "The way you looked at me, not angry.
Just done."
I've never seen that look before, and I think that's what scared me." I paused there. She was right. I hadn't been angry. Anger still reaches for connection. I'd been finished. "I didn't realize how much I took from you, because you never stopped giving." The letter continued. "I told myself you were strong enough, that you didn't need what I needed. But that was a lie I told myself, so I wouldn't have to feel guilty." My throat tightened. Emily had never admitted guilt before. "I don't know if you'll ever want a relationship with me again. I don't even know if I deserve one." But I needed you to know that I finally see what I did. The letter ended simply. I'm sorry, Rachel.
Truly.
I folded the paper slowly and set it back down. For the first time, the question wasn't should I forgive her? It was what do I want now? And that question felt heavier than anger ever had. A week later, my parents invited me to dinner. I hesitated before answering, but something told me it was time. I'll come, I said. But only if we're honest. Mom exhaled with relief. Of course. Their house looked the same as always. Same photos. Same furniture. Same quiet expectations. Emily wasn't there. Mom noticed me looking around. She didn't think it was her place to come. That alone told me things had shifted. We sat at the table. Dad cleared his throat. We owe you an apology, he said stiffly. I raised an eyebrow. That was new. For not protecting you, Mom added. For letting things go too far. I nodded. Thank you. Dad frowned slightly. That's it. I met his gaze. That's all I need right now. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was honest. Then Dad spoke again. Emily's struggling.
I didn't respond.
She feels like she lost you, Mom said carefully. I folded my napkin. She did. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Is there any chance? I held up my hand gently. This isn't something you can fix for her. Dad leaned back. So that's it? You're just gone. I shook my head. I'm not gone. I'm just not sacrificing myself anymore. That seemed to land. 2 months passed. Life settled into something steady and unfamiliar. Then one afternoon, I ran into Mark at a coffee shop. He looked surprised and relieved. Rachel, he said. I was hoping I'd see you. I gestured to the empty chair. Sit. He did, hands wrapped tightly around his cup. I didn't know, he said quietly, about how bad it was. I nodded. A lot of people didn't. He hesitated. Emily's in therapy. That caught my attention. She's realizing things, he continued. About control. About needing to be the center. I studied his face. He looked tired. Older. She misses you, he said. I stirred my coffee. Missing someone isn't the same as respecting them. He nodded slowly. I know. Then he added, she's pregnant. The words landed hard. I froze. What? 6 weeks, he said. She found out after the wedding. 1,000 emotions rushed through me at once. Shock. Fear. Something like grief. That changes things, he said carefully. I looked up. For who? He swallowed. For everyone. I stood. Congratulations, I said quietly. As I walked out, my hands trembled, not with guilt, but with the weight of a future that suddenly felt closer. A child. A new generation. And a family that hadn't learned yet how to be healthy. Emily called that night. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. Hi, she said softly. Hi. There was a long pause. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to manipulate you, she said quickly. Mark said he saw you. I know, I replied. She took a shaky breath. I'm not asking you to come back. I want my child to know you. The real you. I closed my eyes. Emily, I said, I'm not disappearing again. I know, she whispered. I don't want that. I believed her. But belief wasn't trust. I need time, I said. I understand, she replied. For once, she really seemed to. That night, I sat alone in my living room, one hand resting on the letter she'd written weeks ago. The future felt uncertain, but no longer terrifying. I wasn't choosing between family and self anymore. I was choosing how to show up. And for the first time, that choice belonged to me. What I didn't know yet, what none of us knew, was that the hardest test of my boundaries was still coming. And it would force me to decide just how much access my family deserved to the life I'd rebuilt. The call that changed everything came at 2:14 a.m. I was asleep when my phone lit up on the nightstand. I almost ignored it, but something in my chest tightened before I even saw the name.
Mom.
I answered, heart already racing. Rachel, she said, her voice thin and shaking. It's Emily. She's in the hospital. I sat up instantly. What happened? She collapsed at home, Mom said. Stress. Dehydration. They say the baby is okay for now. I closed my eyes, grounding myself. This was it. The moment I'd been dreading without knowing it. I'm on my way, I said. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. Emily lay in the bed, pale and small, a monitor softly beeping beside her. Mark stood near the window, his face drawn. When he saw me, he looked relieved. She keeps asking for you. I hesitated at the door. Then I walked in. Emily turned her head slowly. Her eyes filled with tears the moment she saw me. You came, she whispered. Yes, I said simply. She reached for my hand. This time, I didn't pull away. I was so scared, she said. I thought I'd ruined everything. I thought you wouldn't come. I sat beside her. I didn't disappear, I said quietly. I stepped back. She nodded weakly. I see that now. Mom hovered in the corner, hands clasped together like she was afraid to breathe. I didn't call you to fix this, Emily said suddenly, looking straight at me. I know I don't get to ask that anymore. I studied her face. No drama. No manipulation. Just fear and honesty. I'm here, I said. But things are different now. I know, she whispered. They should be. Emily was released 2 days later with strict orders to rest. She asked if she could stay with me. The old me would have said yes immediately. The new me took a breath. You can stay for 3 days, I said. Mark too. But there are rules. Emily blinked. Rules? Yes, I said calmly. No guilt. No pressure. No emotional dumping. And if I say I need space, you respect it. She nodded without hesitation. Okay. That alone told me how much had changed. Those 3 days were strange. Quiet mornings. Shared meals. Awkward pauses filled with effort instead of expectation. Emily apologized, not once, but many times. Without excuses. Without turning herself into the victim. I built my whole identity on being adored, she admitted one night. When I felt like I was losing that, I panicked. And I took it out on you. I listened. I didn't rush to comfort her. I didn't minimize it. That doesn't disappear overnight, I said. Neither does the damage. I know, she said. I just want to do better. I believed her. But belief still wasn't trust. On the 4th morning, Mark packed their bags. Emily stood by the door, hands resting protectively on her stomach. I won't ask you to be the same as before, she said. I don't want that version of you back. I met her eyes. Good. She was exhausted. She smiled faintly. Will you be part of my child's life? I thought about it carefully. Yes, I said. But as an aunt, not a backup parent. Not a fixer. Just me. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. That's more than I deserve. Deserve has nothing to do with it, I replied. Respect does. She hugged me gently, carefully, like she knew this was fragile. And when she left, the house didn't feel heavy. It felt hopeful. Months passed. Emily stayed in therapy. So did I. My parents changed too, not perfectly but noticeably. They asked instead of assumed. Listened instead of instructed. And I learned something unexpected. Distance hadn't destroyed my family. It had saved me. The baby was born on a crisp autumn morning. A little girl. They named her Lily. I stood in the hospital room, looking down at her tiny face, and felt something shift in my chest. Not obligation, not fear, but choice. Emily looked up at me, eyes shining. She has your calm, she said softly. I smiled. Let's hope she learns boundaries earlier than we did. Emily laughed, a real laugh. I'll make sure of it. Later that night, alone in my house, I sat on the couch where everything had begun. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who believed love meant disappearing. My phone buzzed with a message from Emily. Thank you for staying. I typed back. Thank you for letting me exist. I didn't disappear from my family. I redefined my place in it. And the greatest gift I gave my sister wasn't my absence. It was my refusal to keep shrinking. Because when you finally choose yourself, the people who truly love you learn how to rise to meet you. And if they don't, you keep walking anyway.